Nardo, back to Late Night in the Midlands. John, I welcome you, my friend. How are you?
Hi, Mike. Michael, I'm happy to be with you and your audience.
Well, it's good to have you back. It's been a while, and 2016 is coming to a close. 2017 is on the horizon, and earthquakes have picked up. All kinds of weather patterns have gone crazy, and the things that you guys have told me through the years that we're going to be coming into our future here on Earth, weather-wise and other. You guys have not been off. You've been right. So I welcome you back, and I look forward to getting somewhat of an update on where we
Well,
are
thank
with Planet X.
well, thank you for bringing me together with you and your audience so that we can help to prepare one another for the disasters that are bound to be coming. And that's the whole purpose of our discussion here is to alert people to the vital information that is being withheld by our government, by the diabolical rulers who really do not represent the people. These are evil people who have connived and lied and murdered their way to the top. They had no way represent the people. They are criminals, and everyone knows this. And it's gotten to the point where it's just blatantly obvious to everyone. So we have to work together to help to protect each other's lives because the government certainly is about to go underground, and they have their literally trillion-dollar underground facilities that they have been building for several decades. That's very well documented. In fact, on my Vimeo channel, vimeo.com, you can look up my name on vimeo.com. You will find, if you go through all the numerous videos that I put up there, one of them actually has ex-Governor Jesse Ventura's visit to their underground facilities at Cheyenne Mountain, in the bowels of Cheyenne Mountain, and it's just spectacular what they have there. Lavish facilities for the few who rule and not for the remainder of the population. They have blast doors that weigh several tons, and their security chief, their Colonel Wynn, Robert Wynn, I believe his name is, stated on this video with Jesse Ventura that if there is any kind of disaster such as massive solar blasting, meteor showers where the people would want to go underground, they're not going to get in because those blast doors will be closed before they even get there. That's what our government thinks of us, so we have to work together. The update on 2017 for Planet X is, it looks to me, I mean, I've just gotten so overloaded with information working on other issues besides Planet X that I just have not had the time. I would need a whole staff of people, which I don't have, to really study the graphs and the data on the earthquakes, on the volcanic eruptions, on the sinkholes. Just think about this. The sinkholes alone are one manifestation of these earth disasters. And we're seeing more sinkholes. We're seeing more train derailments. Why would there be train derailments? Well, the earth is becoming less stable. And there's so many other manifestations of the earth's disaster, becoming disturbed from within. But we can keep track of them. One of them, I guess, would be looking at meteors. Meteors is one thing that the power elite find difficult to conceal from the people, because the people can see these shooting stars that come down, and what it is they're objects from space that are being dragged in gravitationally by larger objects, and as they pass, they're being dragged in and being pulled toward that great gravitational anchor, our sun, whose mass is approximately 300,000 Earth masses. So it's a great gravitational magnet, so to speak. So when it pulls these comets in, and the comets accompanying asteroids and meteors, they get sucked into the Earth's gravitational force field as they pass by Earth, as if they get close enough. It's like getting close to a whirlpool. If you get too close, you'll get sucked in. Well, that's what these happening to many of these meteors. They're getting sucked into Earth's gravitational force field as they get too close to Earth passing by. And naturally they come plummeting to Earth, accelerating to Earth, and the friction of these meteors creates such heat, intense heat, that most of the meteors actually explode. They light up, and they appear to be what is commonly called shooting stars. And some of them actually make impact with the Earth. We have now more numerous sightings. The American Meteor Society, AMS.org, I believe it is, AMS.org. If you go there, you can look up a number of meteor sightings that citizens have reported to this American Meteor Society, and they keep count of them. And we think there's an increasing number of meteors being sighted.
There's one that's supposed to pass us, is it New Year's Eve or New Year's Day? And they're saying it's going to be a pretty close one. But they also say that it kind of swings by every 5 years. But it's another case. I didn't hear about it until just recently. Yeah. And then, all the celebrity deaths, another thing. People have been bringing up all the celebrities who've died. And I've been joking around. Maybe it's not such a joke. I mean, maybe they're not actually dying. Maybe they're cashing in their ticket.
No, that's a good point. I mean, there's so many facets. I look at this whole Planet X issue as being analogous to a huge, multifaceted ball, and every of the thousands of different facets on it represents one side issue that connects to the major issue of Planet X. And one of the facets is people disappearing, politicians resigning, military officers, high-ranking officers resigning. Where are they going? Retiring. Also, you have the Queen of England. For a long time, I've suspected that the Queen of England, Prince Philip, and the royal family they have doubles. They have always had doubles. I have a photograph I like to dig out somewhere that shows both a close-up of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, and they certainly don't look exactly. I mean, they've done a pretty good job of getting people who look like them, and they probably have had plastic surgery to improve their likeness. But still in all, they don't look exactly like them. So we have to watch out for the Queen going underground. I was told by another talk show host a long time ago that the Queen, this was way back in around 2003, British Royal Crown has purchased large tracts of land in and around Crestone, Crestone, Colorado, which is not far from, I believe, I haven't checked it on the map, but I believe it's not too far from the Cheyenne Mountain underground facility. And incidentally, that Cheyenne Mountain underground facility is only about, I think it's 19 miles from the Denver airport.
Wow.
Now, the Denver airport, even the police told Jesse Ventura in its documentary on True TV, which I was fortunate enough to DVD record when it came out several years ago, because they've taken it off. I can't find it on YouTube anymore. So that's a clear indication to you that the power elite do not want people to see Jesse Ventura's expose of the underground facility at Cheyenne Mountain, where they intend to take the ruling elite and shut out everyone else when disaster strikes. They don't want the people to see it. But luckily, I was able to DVD record it myself, and I put it up on Vimeo. And Vimeo, I think, is a lot less policed than YouTube is.
It is. Vimeo is a lot better as far as people not harassing you for what you're putting up, and they don't come after you for every little thing that you do. So in that sense, it is better. I have a Vimeo too, but I haven't used it much lately. It's been a while. It's been a couple of years, I think, since I've put anything on it.
Well, you should, because Actually, as you know, we have to pay $70 a year for that privilege of getting a better treatment on Vimeo than we get on YouTube.
Yeah.
But anyway, that video is up on there, and I should, I've got to remember to send you the link to it, to Jesse Ventura, True TV, which is a major channel on cable, True TV, TRU TV. It's a major channel, and they took him off because he was he exposed too much truth, that it was really incriminating to the power elite. He had one program that incidentally would prove that they have mind control, where they hypnotize people, and they had a man on there whose name he would not reveal his name, but he actually had the courage to go on, and he was a CIA agent who was involved with these mind control assassins. Our solar system, you've probably heard this, is going through the galactic plane.
Yeah.
And that galactic plane has it's like a swirling disc in space with cosmic dust and planets and solar systems, a whole, many solar systems in that galactic disk. So there's going to be greater forces on our solar system, disturbing forces. So it's a gradual thing. It's not turning on a light switch, but a gradual change in our system. But they made that date, so that said, 2012, and I've got some of the documentaries that I DVD recorded also on the History 2 channel, where they talked about all the prophecies about 2012. A lot of them have valid information, but it's just that you can't say that date is the end of the world. It's the beginning of the end, and other people have said that too. They said 2012 is basically the beginning of the end. It's going to be a slow process of degradation in the climate of the Earth and in the geological activity of the Earth. So, where do I go from here? There's so much. Go ahead.
Well, you had talked about in your bio of the Earth's core being unbalanced. Tell me a little bit about that. Yeah, off center. The inner core is off center. Yeah.
Well, all geophysicists now believe that this is a very commonly accepted theory about the Earth's core. If you look at visualize something like a ball with a very thick outer layer, which is the mantle of the Earth. It's made of molten rock, primarily molten rock, very thick. Think of it as something thick like pudding. Okay, that's just to give it a vivid imagery. And then within that thick outer layer is a deeper inner layer. Actually, it's molten iron, primarily molten metal. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And within that cavity, that spherical cavity of molten metal lying deep beneath the mantle, is a solid iron core, which is the inner core. So you have two cores. You have a solid iron inner core and a molten metal outer core. So the inner core floats around, sort of like a cork. If you can imagine a cork floating on a bowl of water, and that bowl of water is sitting on a potter's spinning wheel, rotating around, such that the water in the bowl becomes swirling, in a constant, smooth, swirling motion. You can also think of it as a glass coffee cup filled with coffee, and you have a stirrer. The stirrer might represent, it's a stirring stick, or say a lollipop, okay? One of those lollipops with a solid ball at the end. So you put the solid ball of the lollipop into the center of the coffee cup, and you put the stick of the lollipop between the palms of your hands, and you can actually rotate that lollipop stick. You can imagine what I'm describing. You can visualize it. The lollipop candy ball with immersed in the center of the coffee would just rotate, and you would still have a smooth, swirling motion of the coffee. If you look at it through the glass cup, there would be no waves or ripples in the coffee. It would just swirl around rather smoothly. That's the way our Earth should be, with the core centered. Now, if the core was for some reason displaced, that center molten solid metal core within the molten metal outer core, floating around in that molten core, if that solid core was suddenly, somehow, or gradually displaced off center, it would still be rotating, but it would also be revolving around the center.
I see.
And that, you can imagine that if you did that with the lollipop. Now, instead of just putting the lollipop stick between the palms of your hands and rubbing your hands together and rotating this lollipop, keeping it in place, centered within the cup of coffee, now you're moving it around. While it's rotating, you're stirring it like you would normally stir coffee. What's going to happen to that, the smoothness of the surface of the coffee? It's going to start to ripple. Waves will be created. And if you were to move that lollipop, excuse me, I'm catching a cold here.
Oh, I'm with you. Yeah, so am I. Believe me, I totally understand.
You can incidentally take a lot of garlic, raw garlic. I cut it up with a potato peeler to get very thin slices. So the thinner the slices, the more your body absorbs. So use a potato peeler to, like a violin, and go gently across the clove of garlic, and you can get lots of thin slices into your food every day. Take iodine too, nascent iodine, along with the garlic. That helps a lot. And also vitamin C from the real fruits, because you get real vitamin C only from God. Lemons, limes, squeeze that in your water frequently. So between the real vitamin C, the iodine, and the garlic, you can help a lot. Stay away from sugar. Sugar reduce it, lowers your body's immunity. Well, anyway, getting back to the subject. If you move that, start stirring that cup the way people normally stir a cup of coffee, you're going to have a lot of waves, and that's what's happening. Now that solid metal inner core is beginning to rotate and revolve further and further away from the center. The farther away from the center it rotates, the bigger the circle is that solid ball inner core describes in its path, right? The greater, you move it farther away, it's getting closer to the rim of the coffee cup now, and in so doing, it is going to create even greater waves, higher amplitude waves in the molten metal, which is likened to the coffee in the cup. So the coffee in the cup, or the molten metal in the outer molten core, is going to start rippling with higher amplitude waves. And how do we know this? We can actually see an image of it. And, it's funny that I looked and I couldn't find any scientist who knows this, who understands this. I don't know, I don't know why, but modern science really doesn't teach the basics that we used to learn years ago. And many people who have PhDs, they just don't seem to have the understanding. They go along with what's told to them, theories, and they're not understanding. I try to reach people, but they don't seem to. Some people seem to get it, but it takes a while. It's like anything else, Michael.
Yeah, it is. Now, is this in return affecting our magnetic field? Yeah, it is, because you see, I just wanted to finish up with one thing, and then I'll go on to what your question. Sure.
And that is the greater ripples in the molten iron core of the Earth are being manifested as ripples in our jet stream, because the magnetic field of the Earth, when that swirling iron core, molten iron core, begins to ripple, that swirling core has always generated the Earth's magnetic field. I mean, this is commonly accepted by geophysicists, that the Earth's swirling magnetic molten iron outer core is actually what is the swirling motion of it, impregnated with many electrons. And electrons in motion, as we know, as basic physicists will tell you, it's a big principle of basic physics, that electrons in motion create a magnetic field that sort of like encircles the linear line of the electrons travel. So if you have electrons traveling, say like, what's a good analogy? Sort of like a dog. Imagine a dog coming out of a swimming pool, and he's running, dashing out of the swimming pool in a straight line. And as he's running out, he's shaking all the water off of himself, and that droplets of water are spraying out in all directions around him in his path, a linear path in which he's running. That's sort of an analogy. Another analogy would be cars traveling through a tunnel. Each car might represent an electron moving in a straight line. And the walls of the tunnel, the circular walls of the tunnel, would represent the magnetic shape of the magnetic field that's generated by those moving cars or moving electrons. So you get the picture, I think.
Yeah.
Straight line electron motion creates a magnetic field that runs coaxially concentrically around the line of travel of the electrons. Well, those electrons are impregnating our entire molten outer core due to beta radiation, that is the emission of electrons from their atoms. Beta radiation is basically defined as the emission of electrons from the valence bands of their atoms, and they become more or less like ions. So it's radiation, actually, which could be damaging to us. For example, if we were to experience beta radiation exposure, it would be some damage to our body because these electrons have higher energy. Well, anyway, you can imagine with the high pressures and temperatures in the Earth, you can have beta radiation and you can have free electrons revolving, creating this magnetic field.
Right.
When the Earth is swirling, when the outer molten core is swirling, causing ripples, like high roller coaster-like ripples, then you're going to have a roller coaster-like magnetic field that's generated. And that roller coaster, abnormal roller coaster-like magnetic field, which is our Earth's magnetic field, then in turn creates the jet stream flow, which is commensurately ripply and roller coaster-like. So now we have a roller coaster-like jet stream, and you can see evidence of my theory that the swirling, irregular swirling of Earth's molten iron outer core eventually results in the roller coaster shape of the jet stream. Because I have videotapes of the jet stream from the Weather Channel going back to 2004. Those roller coaster-like ripples in the jet stream were rather small. They would come in and maybe they would be less, the amplitude, the peak-to-peak amplitude, the highest peak and the lowest peak of each wave of the jet stream. The highest peak would never get as high as the Canadian border, and it would never get as low as the U.S.-Mexican border. And furthermore, those ripples were rather close together, so you could get 3 ripples of the jet stream within the entire west to east coast expanse of the United States. That was back around 2004, 2005, 2006. And I watched steadily, year after year, on the Weather Channel as those roller coasters got bigger and bigger, meaning that the amplitude, the peak amplitude got higher, the negative lower peak amplitude got greater, such that this peaks of the jet stream now would travel as far as the Canadian border and even higher north, further north than the Canadian border, and further south than the Mexican border, deep into Mexico, as you see them now. So it's gotten tremendously increased in amplitude, and also you no longer have 3 smaller cycles, 3 smaller jet stream waves within the U.S. territory. You have 1. So not only has it gotten bigger in amplitude, but it's stretched out in wavelength. What does that tell you? That tells you that that iron core, that solid iron core, that ball has gotten farther and farther away from the center, closer and closer to the mantle of the Earth, which is a big pudding-like molten iron, molten rock mass, which is by far the deepest, thickest layer of all the three layers that I just mentioned. Okay, so now when that ball gets close to the Earth's pudding-like molten rock, it starts to cause greater friction. This is all basic. I mean, even ninth grade science, really, that's what this is. You have greater friction when an object is moving away from the liquid medium, which is the molten iron outer core, and toward the more solid, highly viscous medium of Earth's mantle. Out from the core, iron, molten core. So now the mantle is becoming disturbed and perturbed, and frictionally disturbed. And now what does that do? If you look at a common lava lamp that children have in their bedrooms, the lava lamp is very similar to the kinds of mantle plumes, or they're also called thermal plumes. What's another? It has several names: mantle plumes, thermal plumes, and some other one. But anyway, these are like the lava within your lava lamp. When the light bulb at the bottom, the base of the lamp, is turned on, the heat from the light bulb gradually heats up that slime, that gooey lava, and when it heats up, the lava will rise up. We've all seen that. So it's a perfect piece of evidence to show us analogously what happens to the Earth's mantle when it gets overheated. It starts rising up with plumes that actually go up like, when you're cooking pudding in a pot, for example. You're making chocolate pudding. I don't know if you've ever made it.
Yeah.
But as it thickens, it starts out as very, very liquidy. And then as it begins to thicken, then you'll see popping. You'll see gas rising up, creating like little volcanoes, actually, in the pudding when the pudding actually comes to its maximum thickness. And that's precisely what happens to the Earth. You're seeing more and more mantle plumes coming up, and then gases are arising with it that are causing methane. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to ask, is this contributing, and it probably is it contributing to the swarm of earthquakes that have been? Now, people, I go through this again, people will say, oh, we've always had the earthquakes, just never had so many outlets to report on it. I don't believe that. The earthquakes are... I've been watching. I get them in my email. The USGS sends me an email for a certain level of the earthquake. The bigger ones, 5 and above.
Right.
I've been getting a lot of those. Matter of fact, I just got another one yesterday. I mean, normally they come 2 or 3 a day. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you're doing this, Michael, because I have not been keeping track of it. I just know it's happening, but I haven't been getting the data. You were getting the actual data.
Well, Dr. Rand talked me into it. He kept pounding my head about, it's real easy, just go up and sign up for the email alerts, and I did. And I'll tell you what, they're coming in like, especially the Asia. I mean, I'm surprised the place hasn't sank yet with all the earthquakes that have come in from, the Ring of Fire, and it's just incredible.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's this Earth this hyperactivity and abnormal revolution of Earth's solid inner core is causing a lot of that, a lot of the earthquake activity. Because look, the mantle is getting heated up. You have greater friction now against the core, the mantle of the Earth, where the mantle meets the boundary line, where the mantle meets the molten iron core beneath it that I just described. When that meets the mantle, you get all that friction, and then you get pieces of the mantle begin to slough off into the molten iron outer core. And when that mantle sloughs off in there, now the viscosity of the molten iron outer core becomes greater, it becomes thicker, more viscous. And what happens when you have a more viscous liquid with an iron ball, the inner iron core rotating in a thicker, more viscous liquid? You have greater friction. Greater friction creates greater heat. So now the mantle plumes are getting worse. It's going to be like a domino effect. I think we're going to see an exponential increase, and you're noticing that now. I can't. I guess you people are pretty aware of what's happening with the Earth in so many different ways.
Well, a lot of people are, but not every. There's still. I mean, if I wasn't getting these emails sent to me, or these earthquakes sent to my email, it wouldn't commute in my head like it does now. Actually seeing them coming in, I'm thinking. And I go to my email, I'm thinking, what, another one? I mean, I just got two of those, today, and
Yeah.
so then it starts adding up because you're seeing it,
Yeah, in fact, what you're saying is true. That people become changing their attitude takes time, and gradually, when they see events occurring over and over again, just like in the mass media, that's how they brainwash the public by hitting them with the same story over and over again, and the same theme, and that's eventually people begin to adopt the attitude, the state of mind that the mind controllers want the people to adopt. And likewise, when we become educated, not by propaganda, in this case, it's by real earthquake activity. And we're seeing the actual factual data that's coming in that proves to us that, hey, something's wrong with the Earth, but we've known it all along because we see a whole host of other anomalies.
And our weather is another one of those.
Weather, flooding, we've had record-breaking floods frequently. One record breaks the previous record.
We're breaking records left and right. I mean, everywhere. Temperatures, you name it. Everything is being called.
The Weather Channel doesn't even want to tell you that anymore. They used to tell us, like I remember about back in 2010, they said, well, we had 5,623 record high temperatures. Now they don't even tell you that anymore because it's getting so off the charts that they don't want to shock people.
Well, I noticed
but the
words.
Weather Channel even admitted that.
I noticed words like historic being put on storms constantly now. That's like we had floods here in South Carolina. I don't know, over a year ago, and historic floods. It's like historic this, historic that. Even some of this stuff has been. Some of it's been called biblical.
You're absolutely right. It's a very good point to bring up. I mean, I'm glad that you helped me out because I've got so many ideas in my mind and things that I have to remember that I can't possibly dredge out every memory, every recollection regarding every issue because there's so many different facets to this Planet X mega issue.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you're bringing this up. You're right. The word biblical and the word epic, too. Epic floods. You hear that all the time. Historic floods. You never heard this before. Back in the 70s, everything was nice. The jet stream was smooth. The weather was boring. The Weather Channel was the most boring channel on TV. Now it's the most exciting.
Well, yeah, and and now that they could do 24/7 with weather because it's like the old news when they first start following car chases, police chases. It was exciting. Well, the weather has gotten like that. It's just incredible.
Yeah, England, windstorms that are just blowing things away. Winds up to 80 miles an hour are very commonplace nowadays. And we're seeing a lot of that today, too. So it's the windstorms, the epic, biblical, historic floods that are happening repeatedly, the storms that are so big in hurricanes, basically, land hurricanes that have such a wide diameter. We've never seen them so wide, so great in diameter before. Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Sandy, a whole host of others. So we can go on and on, and we could waste a whole night talking about weather. But people know,
right.
People should know this because we've got to get prepared. But the basic, I think what we need to do, and I think too, that what we have to emphasize is, folks, just start saving. Don't throw away your plastic bottles. Rinse them out real well with hot water. Fill them up with tap water, and store them in your basement. Get shelving that you can make like pieces of plywood. You can put pieces of plywood in between each layer of bottles so that you don't need these big expensive shelves, which actually waste a lot of height space because you're not going to make, you can have a lot of empty space in between, the second shelf and the third shelf. So I just take basically that masonite or particle wood, which is rather thin, 1/8 inch, and I use that to separate layers of bottles. Of course, you want to take all the bottles that are pretty much the same height, put them all together in one layer, and then maybe I make one stack about maybe 20 inches by 24, 20 by 24, and that'll be one stack of bottles, and then I put some masonite or particle board or even plywood in between each layer so I can get about 4 or 5 layers of bottles.
Right.
I have to choose, again, the ones that are very, very often, though, you get bottles that are not exactly the same height, a little bit different. So what I do is I take a piece of cardboard, which is somewhat compressible, and some of that cushiony foam packing material. It's like sheets. It comes in sheets. It's about an 1/8 inch or more in thickness, and I put that in with a layer, sandwich that in with a layer of cardboard, so that any disparity in the heights of some of the bottles will be compensated for by the cushioning effect of that separating cardboard sandwich with that spongy packing material, that spongy sheets of packing material. So anyway, it's a little bit time consuming, but in fact, my basement is getting such that even though I have many, many, many bottles of water, I've got more empty bottles now than full bottles, and it's getting out of control. I've got to do something about it. I've got to make it. I know I can't do it all in one day, so I'm going to have to make it a ritual to fill up, say, 5 bottles a day. Rinse out, fill up, get all the bottles of the same height, put them together, and fill them up. Keep on making layers, because still got a lot of space between. I get, a height that I can use up before the weight of the bottles gets too heavy, and starts to jeopardize the stability of the bottom layer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't want to put too many layers there because you don't know if it's going to withstand all that weight. But I still got a lot to go. Anyway, that sounds mundane, sounds trivial, but it's the most important thing, because when we lose power, which we're going to lose, and it's going to be for a long time. I'm not making this up. This comes from none other than the White House. You can look up the White House. I just posted it. My friend sent it to me. Actually, an executive order or some kind of
for space
document
weather
from the White House.
For space weather and how it can affect our power grid. Yep.
Something like that. Yeah, from the official government document saying there will get prepared for long-term power outages. So they're telling us about it. I mean, and what's his name? Ed Koppel, who used to be a ABC TV evening reporter.
Mm-hmm.
Ted Koppel, remember him?
Oh,
He
yeah.
wrote a book that warning about this. He wrote an entire book. And now Dr. Michio Kaku, a physicist at State University, I think, New York, or City University of New York, also is warning about it. So many people are warning about these power outage failures long term. The reason they would be long term is because the solar emissions that I was just talking about are what is causing, I believe, long-term chronic solar blasting. Is hitting the Earth's magnetic field. And you had asked me a question which I didn't really address yet. You said, has it got anything to do with our magnetic field? And well, the sun's solar electrified particles, protons and electrons, that are being blasted out in all directions, some of which strike Earth's magnetic field. Well, those moving electrons, as I mentioned before, they themselves, those streams of electrons coming from the sun and streams of protons, actually each stream creates a little magnetic field encircling it concentrically, sort of like a spring. If you were to take an arrow, here's another analogy, put an arrow through a coiled spring, a garage door spring, and that arrow would represent the straight line travel of the protons, which are positive electrically charged particles, or also that arrow would represent the straight line travel of the electrons, which are negative electric particles. Mm-hmm. Well, both kinds of particles create magnetic fields, which are sort of analogous in shape anyway to the coiled garage door spring. So you've got all these magnetic fields that are impacting trillions of them, in a big solar wave of particles called the solar wind, and it's blasting the Earth's magnetic field, creating electromagnetic streams like coils that I just described, which impact Earth's magnetic field. And now you have what I liken to electromagnetic jousting, where you see two people fighting with swords or with these long jousting poles, and knights in armor jousting one another. Well, you have the jousting of magnetic fields between the sun's solar blasting of magnetic fields and the Earth's magnetic field. And this impacts the Earth's magnetic field. It feeds back that energy from the sun, electromagnetic energy from the sun feeds back electromagnetically, right, from the Earth's outer core, like the skin of an apple, along the skin, right into the top of the apple, the dimple at the top of the apple, that goes into the center core, if you liken the Earth to an apple. So that electromagnetic energy travels thousands of miles from the Earth's magnetic field in space right into the center of Earth, wherein is located our Earth's solid metal inner core. And that's what I believe has been laterally shifting Earth's solid metal inner core off of its center point and eventually causing the jet stream to ripple like a roller coaster.
Nardo, back to Late Night in the Midlands. John, I welcome you, my friend. How are you?
Hi, Michael. I'm happy to be with you and your audience.
Well, it's good to have you back. It's been a while, and 2016 is coming to a close. 2017 is on the horizon, and earthquakes have picked up. All kinds of weather patterns have gone crazy, and the things that you guys have told me through the years that we're going to be coming into our future here on Earth, weather-wise and other, you guys have not been off. You've been right. So I welcome you back, and I look forward to getting somewhat of an update on where we are with Planet X.
Well, thank you for bringing me together with you and your audience so that we can help to prepare one another for the disasters that are bound to be coming. And that's the whole purpose of our discussion here, is to alert people to the vital information that is being withheld by our government, by the diabolical rulers who really do not represent the people. These are evil people who have connived and lied and murdered their way to the top. They had no way represent the people. They are criminals, and everyone knows this. It's gotten to the point where it's just blatantly obvious to everyone. So we have to work together to help to protect each other's lives, because the government certainly is about to go underground, and they have their literally $1 trillion underground facilities that they have been building for several decades. That's very well documented. In fact, on my Vimeo channel, vimeo.com, you can look up my name on vimeo.com. You will find, if you go through all the numerous videos that I put up there, one of them actually has ex-Governor Jesse Ventura's visit to the underground facilities at Cheyenne Mountain, in the bowels of Cheyenne Mountain, and it's just spectacular what they have there. Lavish facilities for the few who rule, and not for the remainder of the population. They have blast doors that weigh several tons, and their security chief, their Colonel Robert Wynn, I believe his name is, stated on this video with Jesse Ventura that if there is any kind of disaster, such as a massive solar blasting, meteor showers where the people would want to go underground. They're not going to get in because those blast doors will be closed before they even get there. That's what our government thinks of us. So we have to work together. The update on 2017 for Planet X is, it looks to me, I mean, I've just gotten so overloaded with information working on other issues besides Planet X that I just have not been dragged in and being pulled toward that great gravitational anchor, our sun, whose mass is approximately 300,000 Earth masses. So it's a great gravitational magnet, so to speak. So when it pulls these comets in, and the comets accompanying asteroids and meteors, they get sucked into the Earth's gravitational force field as they pass by Earth, as if they get close enough. It's like getting close to a whirlpool. If you get too close, you'll get sucked in. Well, that's what happening to many of these meteors. They're getting sucked into Earth's gravitational force field as they get too close to Earth passing by. And naturally they come plummeting to Earth, accelerating to Earth, and again, the friction of these meteors creates such heat, intense heat, that most of the meteors actually explode. They light up, and they appear to be what is commonly called shooting stars. And some of them actually make, at the time, I would need a whole staff of people, which I don't have, to really study the graphs and the data on the earthquakes, on the volcanic eruptions, on the sinkholes. Just think about this. The sinkholes alone are one manifestation of these earth disasters. And we're seeing more sinkholes. We're seeing more train derailments. Why would there be train derailments? Well, the Earth is becoming less stable. And there's so many other manifestations of the Earth's disaster, Earth becoming disturbed from within. But we can keep track of them. One of them, I guess, would be looking at meteors. Meteors is one thing that the power elite find difficult to conceal from the people, because the people can see these shooting stars that come down, and what it is they're objects from space that are being dragged in gravitationally by larger objects, and as they pass, they're